Hey folks, this is Purgle1 bringing you a review for Wuchang Fallen Feathers, the new latest and greatest Souls-like. Let's see how it did, shall we? To get this out of the way, I'm not the person that plays every Souls-like that comes out. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I usually suck at these games. So look at this review as somebody that plays, I've played Elden Ring, I've played the Jedi Fallen, Survivor, Fallen Order games, and I played a lot of the FromSoft games, but I would not say I'm the most diehard Souls-like genre fan. That being said, I do think that Wuchang Fallen Feathers does enough to set itself apart to warrant a playthrough if you're even a moderate fan of that genre. There are a lot of copycats in the Souls-like genre. Thankfully, Wuchang here rises above the rest to join the best of them, and while it doesn't introduce anything that shakes or creates new ground, it does offer a solid and enjoyable take on this genre that I think is worth playing. If we're comparing games in this genre, Wuchang feels closer to like a Wuchang Fallen Dynasty or a Stellar Blade with a sprinkling of Black Myth Wukong, rather than a typical FromSoft offering like Elden Ring. Personally, this take on it is much appreciated for me. In Wuchang, you're given something that most Souls-likes don't offer, which is the feeling of being powerful and fast. Attacks are flashy, smooth, fast, and agile. The myriad of weapons available goes a long way in setting Wuchang apart from its competitors. And I never felt held back or held bound by the throat and just beaten into the ground like some Souls-likes make you feel. Wuchang here is much more agile than her Souls-like counterparts, and she also hates blocking. You'll spend most of your time at Wuchang perfecting the dodge system. This system is extremely precise and unforgiving, but in the best way. I'm hesitant to admit how many basic enemies I died to while mastering this dodge mechanic. And to complement this mechanic, and unlike other titles, Wuchang rewards the player for performing perfect dodges and by making this a staple mechanic. Performing these perfectly timed dodges powers up Wuchang's alternate attacks and her spells. It's a wonderful addition to the game and helps it set apart from the competition. Wuchang is able to block and parry, however these are labeled more as weapon-specific skills. For example, I used a spear or a sword through most of my playthrough, and both of these weapons are pretty much limited to being able to just dodge. But if I used something like an axe, I would have been able to block or parry. Enemies and bosses in Wuchang are fine. Looking back on my time here, there are only 3 or 4 that I can recall currently, and probably even less that I'll be able to recall 3 months from now. Sure, they're solid bosses, and they're enjoyable to play, but they're very by the numbers. Creepy bugs, creepy dudes and dudettes, flesh amalgamations for bosses, a creepy old hunched over boss with a staff that speaks weird stuff, you know the type. Again, none of them are bad, they're just not crazy memorable. While that might be crazy memorable to fight, Wuchang does look great. Logging it into the first area, you're greeted with a lively landscape of luscious rolling hills over the top of a temple. Rivers flow, birds chirp, and wind rustles through the trees. The opening hours of Wuchang are set in areas that could arguably be cozy if they were in any other game. NPCs and enemies and Wuchang herself, as well as the environment, look great. Bosses, even though they might not be memorable to fight, they also look great, and they never fall back on being just crazy standard or basic fare that one could expect for a game like this. Unfortunately, after the luscious opening hours, the game sees Wuchang descending into an underworld of sorts, and the next couple areas are sadly covered in drab grays. They fail to stand out from other games, and they cause Wuchang to feel like a game from a different one than the one that you've been playing during the opening hours. Even the enemies here just really feel like they could be from any game that you've ever played in your life that takes place in an underground or demon-infested area. Arguably the most unique mechanic in Wuchang is the one built around punishing the player for dying. While you do lose some of your, quote, souls for upgrading when dying, you don't lose all of them. However, dying builds towards the madness meter here. Maxing out the madness meter increases your damage taken, but also increases damage given, kind of making you a glass cannon. This is a blessing and a curse, or a curse, I guess, depending on your playstyle. Personally, I tend to play as a glass cannon in most games, so I kind of was okay with this, and I sometimes preferred having Max Madness because it forced me to perfect the dodge mechanic and rewarded me for doing so. Because when I did this, every hit I landed would deal twice the damage I usually dealt. In keeping in line with other games of the genre as well, you'll have different pieces of armor, weapons, helmets, chest pieces, gauntlets, leg pieces you can get to kit yourself out with. None of these are crazy in terms of offering specific skills, but they also offer different defenses in terms of blunt damage, slashing. Some are better at defending against corrupting damage or blight, poison, etc. Kind of the standard fare that you expect from these types of games. The best part about this game compared to other Souls-likes is the soundtrack. The soundtrack in this game just rules. Take a listen. Yeah. When was the last time you played a Souls-like game and we're like, I'm going to remember the soundtrack? For me, never. Sadly, from a positive brings us a negative. The story. Not much to say here. Absent-minded exposition delivered by characters speaking at you. Every time somebody spoke, my eyes just glazed over whenever they were talking at me.
Impressive skills. I didn't even hear you approach.
Most of the dialogue here feels like exposition for the sake of exposition. It's a bunch of sentences that are strung together that add a bunch of words to form sentences that don't really mean anything. But nobody plays these games for the story, do they? So that's fine. So overall, it's kind of a quick review, but if you're itching for a new Souls-like game, you can do a whole lot worse than Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Especially if you have Game Pass, definitely give this game a try if you're a fan of the genre. That being said, I don't see Wuchang winning over anybody who isn't a fan of the genre. However, it does enough right to make it a must-play for anybody who loves Souls-likes. Well, thanks for watching, and again, I'm Pergo1 with LV1 Gaming, and we'll see you next time. Bye.